So in a prior video, which I would link in the description box, I spoke about the transformation our society has undergone over the years as it pertains to dress styles for men and women. And one of the main points that I was trying to put across in that video, and I hope that I did it justice, is that what us Christians perceive as the devil's latest agenda today, i.e. the push to normalize dresses and other feminine articles of clothing for boys and men, may be more accurately described as a logical downstream consequence of prior dress reforms that we've all by and large adopted and taken for granted. And this is not to minimize the role that the devil plays in what is going on today, but to suggest that our support of his strategic agenda in willfully adopting those prior dress reforms has also played a significant role in landing us where we are today. So in a way, we are to blame as well. Now, in this video, I would like to talk about a related but distinct issue, which is the second agenda that the devil has successfully unleashed on our society with the same tool of dress reform. So in other words, the devil had in mind a 2-for-1, using the same tool of dress reform to achieve two ends. In the prior video, I talked about the first end, which is normalizing cross-dressing essentially for boys and men in the 21st century. And in this video, I would like to talk about the second end, which is gender confusion. So prior to the 19th century, public and private life were truly characterized by a separation of spheres for men and women, even as it pertains to forms of dress. And in my prior video, I spoke at length about how male and female costume differed during this time period. So for the purposes of this video, I would like us to refer to this time period as the Era of Gender Distinctiveness. So moving from the Era of Gender Distinctiveness, we arrived in the Era of gender nonconformity or neutrality, which began in the mid-19th century but really took root in the 20th century. In this era, women began to enjoy what scholars refer to as the full rights of citizenship, being able to participate in public life and administration in ways they hadn't before. More importantly, as it pertains to forms of dress, this era ushered in the practice of women adopting styles that were manifestly masculine, most notably pants or trousers. And these reforms with respect to dress and public life were really part of a larger agenda to blur the line between spheres so that women and girls could do all that boys and men could. So if boys and men could wear pants, women could also wear pants as well. And if men could smoke cigarettes, women were allowed to smoke as well, and so on and so forth. Now, in the 21st century, and certainly in 2023, we are light years ahead of the era of gender nonconformity. Indeed, we are in the era of gender inversion. And what I mean by that is that our society today, writ large, is now embracing and advancing the idea that any woman who prefers to wear pants and other stereotypically male forms of dress is not simply a woman trying to push the bounds for equality's sake, like the feminists and suffragists of the 19th and 20th centuries, but that woman or that person is in fact a man and always was. And of course, the same can be said in reverse for biological men. Now, all of this leaves us with a few ironies. The first irony is that we are back to the same rigidity of the pre-19th century period that we fought so hard to abandon. And what do I mean by that? Well, the feminists of the 1850s and onward were adamant that women and girls could and should do what men and boys did. So if men could wear pants, women could also wear pants. And if men could smoke cigarettes, women could also smoke cigarettes. And if men could work outside of the home, women could and should work outside of the home. And if little boys could wear the color blue and play with toy trucks, little girls were to be permitted to do that as well. But catch this, in 2023, if a biological girl, even as young as 18 months old, gravitates towards the color blue or toy trucks, she can be assumed to be a boy. So in other words, while the feminists of the 1850s and onward were striving and fighting to put an end to the stratification of society along gender lines, we in 2023 are fighting the exact opposite battle to re-entrench gender stereotypes. Second irony, it is interesting to me that men who desire to live today as women are very comfortable behaving, dressing, and talking in ways that we traditionally viewed as restrictive for women. So for example, women for long have complained that stereotypically female forms of dress were uncomfortable, restrictive, and even unsafe for certain activities. But today, men who desire to live like women will gladly wear and prance around in the most intricate forms of dress, skirt, and hairstyles for women without complaint. Which begs the question, Were women's clothing and other expectations surrounding how women should conduct themselves really restrictive and uncomfortable, or was it the enemy that planted the seed of unsatisfaction in the minds of women? Because, people will kill today to live in those so called restrictive ways, except that those people, interestingly, are men. And I'll caveat here by saying that I do acknowledge that there were certain aspects of women's attire back in the day that were indeed unsafe, i.e., corsets, but we could very well do away with those issues without introducing pants into the female wardrobe. Third irony, and maybe the most warped of all, if a person who is actually biologically female chooses to behave in ways that are stereotypically feminine, i.e., choose to solely wear dresses and skirts and embrace the biblical standard of a woman being the keeper of the home, she is seen as obnoxious, unduly religious, docile, and cave into patriarchy. But a man who chooses to do these same things is applauded as transgressive and brave. All of this to say that the things that are transpiring in our world today make it clear that our decisions, especially those that pertain to the public domain, never play out in silos. They will generally have multiple downstream effects, which could be either positive or negative. And we are where we are today in part because us Christians, who God specifically instructed to be in the world but not of the world, have adopted or acquiesced to several societal prescriptions for fear of being seen as radical and unenlightened. So in a way, the devil is not solely to blame for what we are going through today. We are to blame as well. I pray that God strengthens us moving forward to always take a stand for what is right every time we have options placed in front of us, whether or not we can foretell what is at the end of those decisions. Because who would have thought that a seemingly benign push for the insertion of pants into the female wardrobe would have played a role in landing us where we are today? Anyhow, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share them in the comment section below. I would love to read them. God willing, I will see you all next time. Bye.